to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Starlight Express. We saw this production at Troubadour Wembley Park Theatre on the 8th of June 2024. Starlight Express has music by Andrew Lloyd Webber and lyrics by Richard Stilgoe, directed by Luke Shepherd, with thrilling new choreography by Ashley Nottingham, and also sees the return of Arlene Phillips as creative dramaturg. Audiences will be immersed inside a world of speed, song and storytelling, as an incredible cast of 40 whiz around and above, performing some of musical theatre's most beloved songs. So Richard, what's it all about?
As a child's train set magically comes to life and the engines race to become the fastest in the world, Rusty the Steam Train has little hope of winning until he's inspired by the legend of the Starlight Express.
But first, our post-show opinion!
A production that leaves the station at high speed.
The points are high for this show.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Okay, Richard, so we are here finally to record an episode of Upstage Downstage where we discuss Starlight Express. Well, your enthusiasm.
I thought you were going to carry on then.
I thought you were going to insert and say "yay, finally" or something like that, but no, you didn't. Never
Well,
mind.
I didn't. We've not rehearsed that. You can tell.
Yes. So have you finished moving about on that scene?
Yeah, I'm not better now. That's it.
So would you like to actually set the scene, because you like this play, you've seen it before. So what better way to tell our viewers what it was like when you walked into the auditorium, which wasn't.
Well, I suppose one thing we need to say is this was opening night.
Yes,
we
it
managed.
was.
I was very fortunate to grab hold of some opening night tickets for the brand new production of Starlight Express that was in the Troubadour Theatre, which previously Newsies was in here. So it's a massive, almost cavernous warehouse that has been turned into basically the production and a theatre. So this used to be a TV studio. So the entire building is just an empty old factory, really. So they've basically had a massive blank canvas to actually create this production.
But let me just interject there, because as someone who's never seen this before, once you go through the very first doors, it comes across like you're going in some sort of amusement park.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a haunted house sort of, or a futuristic, like the black hole. You know, the bit where you're queuing up.
Yeah.
Even the drinks and where you got the programs were like.
Well, it was like a neon underground station. Really, it was like you were walking into the train station, and if it was psychedelic and sort of at night time,
futuristic, wasn't it? That kind of. Scenario.
Yeah, so not only did they take over the stage area, they took over the whole building itself and turned it into Starlight Express, really.
Yeah.
And I think, quite honestly, this production needs that level of attention, because if you're going to do it, you've got to do the whole thing. I was fortunate to see it a long time ago in the 90s, in 93, when I was only 11. Work that out. See how old I am now.
Old.
You're
just old.
Just old. But that was purpose-built in what's now the theatre that's got House in Wicked. So basically the same staging was the Apollo Victoria was actually where it was purpose-built in there. So this is a different take on it, because it's very similar to the German version, where they've actually built it in a building separate to a theatre. So it's actually become, I think, bigger than how it would if you put it on a stage.
Yeah.
Because I've also seen a production of it on tour where it was very limited and there was no extra sort of tracks or bits around it. It's a production that you can't restrict. I think you've got to have the sheer space to actually make it sing as much as it can. In a way,
it must be quite limited for the amateur versions of it as well.
Yeah, I've seen some, because it's very hard to license it in this country. You can license it, but I think the cost wise would be there's a few American versions that have been licensed that have been amateur, but they have used very big spaces. They've done a lot of some of them done it outdoor, so they've actually used quite a lot of space to do it.
Or sports halls.
Or sports halls, yeah, exactly. I suppose getting back to what you actually see on stage, the easiest way to put it is it's almost like a railway turntable with tracks around it that actually come in and off and around the audience and go off into under the seating and behind stage. There's so really it's almost like an in the round, pun intended, production where all the entrances, exits are very similar to something in the RSC or the Stephen Joseph Theatre, where everything enters from the sides or the back or hidden. So there's no real sort of wings in this production. Everything's just pure tracks and video walls, and it's almost like a BMX track or a skateboard arena.
That's
it's
exactly
that sort of, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt looking at it. You know, as we talked to our seats.
Yeah, exactly.
in the new auditorium, you just saw the tracks that a bit like a playmat. You know, when you were little, because that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like winding around you, all from the sides, like you say. However, it was set out like it was. You had a focal point as well,
exactly.
like you say. So when you were referring to the skate parks, those kind of huge
ramps,
and that's pretty much what you were looking at the far side.
I mean, if you actually look at an aerial shot, it's actually a train wheel. The actual design from above. Yeah. If you look at the shot from above, you can just see it on the picture I've used on Instagram, but you can just see the way the audience are seated within it from above. It does look like a train wheel. So it's actually, there's more thought in it than just how it's presented to us, and also intricately within all of the set and the ramps and everything. There's LED strip lights built throughout the stage to lift the level of technical modernness, the almost futuristic. I think that's the key thing.
Exactly how it came across. Yeah. When I was looking at it, it felt it was infitting for the Starlight Express.
It's name, very Tron-like and very
Yes, it was. I think the strobe lighting or the tubes, the effect that they had there, was so iconic of the steam trains of the past. The lines that they had
exactly,
on the side of the trains.
It's almost movement, sort of.
As you say, it gives that impression of things moving. Yeah. With those lines as well. The whole layout was fascinating, as well as the fact that even though we were in this blank canvas and the majority of it was dark, you had the stars everywhere. Yeah. And they even had the LEDs that came down a little bit. I mean, we'll probably touch upon that a bit later on, but there wasn't just lights in the ceiling.
No, of course not.
They literally were dangling at different lengths all the way through the whole base.
And it was a set that felt alive just as you walked in, because it almost had a hum or a heartbeat.
Yeah, it
because
felt like
it was alive.
But it's like the waiting at the train station as
well.
Yeah,
it was like it felt like an electric hum, where it's like you felt like there was pulses of electric going through the stage rather than just static colour.
That would be the electric trains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
They're waiting in the wings.
Don't step on the lines, you'll electrocute yourself.
Yeah.
But no, I think the attention had been paid to how you saw it when you walked in, rather than it just being it started and that was it. Even the LED walls and stuff, because the wording was quite bright, you didn't actually know where the LED walls started, LEDs ended. It all felt, the palette was really good. The colour of the entire staging of it was really good.
And to add to that, it wasn't just like the white light that you assume. It was like a blue, a light blue tone that helped elevate it from the background colours.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was very striking.
Yeah, you could tell the amount of technical things built into this. So longer down the run, they're going to have to do a lot of checks to make sure this case stays as it is.
It also has a nod to, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one, but it has a nod back to the 80s of where it all started by having the appearance of those kind of television programmes with the style of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's giving me Blind Date. It's giving me You Bet. It's giving me Challenge Annika.
Yeah, and I think, the reason I mentioned Tron, that was a very 80s technical achievement for a film in those days. And that was very, very similar to this, where you've got a lot of neon work and stuff like that.
Even the lettering.
Yeah, down to the whole thing, it all felt very nostalgic. I feel that it's what they would have wanted to do with Starlight, even though they couldn't do it in the 80s. because this started in 84.
Yeah.
It was right in that. So I feel like with today's technology, they've managed to pull off what they probably would have wanted it to look like in the 80s. Because it's meant to be otherworldly. It's meant to be dream world. You know, the bed and things are on stage are just to point and nod to the fact that this is a dream. This is about the child going to sleep and dreaming about trains in a race. So that's what you're meant to be taken to.
Yeah, let me just chuck in my penny's worth here. Right, when you suggested about going to see Starlight Express, I'd heard of it, and I thought, oh, it was just one of the Lloyd Webber's things. It already doesn't interest me as such. So let's see where we're going. What is this about?
Yeah.
And then you said it was about a train or something. I thought, what are we seeing? Thomas the Tank Engine, the musical?
Yeah.
And I said that as a joke.
Yeah,
Being
total
honest,
joke.
it was a joke. And then reading through it, he couldn't get the rights to Thomas the Tank Engine in the 80s because that went to the TV series.
Exactly that.
And so he decided to write a musical based on the trains.
Yeah.
As a boy, that's what he wanted to do. But also it was, how do we get this? And I think it was Trevor Nunn. Off the top of my head, I think it was Trevor Nunn. They were talking, they suggested doing a whole play on skates. And so that's where the play derived from. And that's how we end up getting Starlight Express. So once I'd sat down, my next thing was, why on earth is there a child's bed in the centre? What the heck is this
What's
about
going
now?
on? Yeah.
It's so strange. But really, that's the only set you ever see.
Yeah, exactly
That is just it. And that is just at the start. And it pops
comes
up
back in the
now and again.
Yeah, it does, yeah. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, it's very similar to how it happened in previous versions of it, you know, and I think the production centres around the races and things that are happening around that. So I think it's just that nod to the fact that this is in a dream sequence. The whole thing is a child's dream, which is quite clever, really, in conception.
But adding to that dream sequence, the very first few notes or the bars that they have, it's very diddle-a-diddle-a-diddle-a. It's very nursery rhyming. It's very dreamlike. So even within the musical score, it's building you up for that particular scene.
You can hear the echoes of Starlight Express in the background. You can hear it turned into a
well, that's like the premonition, isn't it?
Exactly.
Of,
it's it starts as a lullaby, and actually it's bigger than that. So it's just the cleverness of doing that is, there's a lot of thought gone into that whole process, really.
And whilst we're talking about that, we've nicely segued ourselves into the writing of it.
Yeah.
Now, as it's all music and very little dialogue, we might as well just talk about the whole musical numbers and things like that.
Well, I suppose really the first part of it, the writing is Child is the conductor, narrator, race leader. It's quite cleverly written that's the focal point of the opening, really, of it.
Yeah, they've been told to go to bed, but they're staying up, play with their train.
It's the sort of thing where, the black duvet comes up, the torch goes on, so they can carry on reading or they can carry on drawing. It's done in that way that, yes, Mum, I'm going to bed, but actually I'm going to go and, go into a far off train set in the sky,
I do know. I was there and I watched, and it was quite nice how it then, once you had that little segment over and done with, you then got into it. Come on now, let's see what this is about. I want to see what they do with this, the tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
They start bringing out all these trains.
So the opening scene is written in a way that we've now had a change in the script compared to previous versions of Starlight Express. So the entry of these trains are previously, it's all been different countries. So every train has been based on different countries when they're introduced to the audience. So the train conductor, the child, introduces them all from different places, whereas that's been scrapped in this version. Whereas there was definitely one from Japan, from Russia, from Britain, from America. They've watered that away and just gave them all their names and brought them in as different trains, basically named by the child, rather than them having a specific location.
Why do you think they've done that?
I think maybe to make it more timeless and not linked to reality.
Is it also that maybe you get all the trains...
Because there was a lot
in every country now.
Well, it's not just that. It's because there was more cliched jokes in the past about different countries,
right?
Rather than now, they've really the only one they kept in was the British train with the leaves on the line. In the previous versions, there was more nods and jokes to different countries, whereas now they've almost just kept in the leaves on the line and that's it really.
Oh yeah, well,
So
you've got to mock yourself, haven't you?
So
I
yeah, so
suppose?
basically, but what I'm saying is they've almost stripped all that away now, and they've all sort of stayed in this country, maybe for trademarking reasons, or they've just thought let's just change it because of the changes they've made further down the line with the way they went with the storyline and the fuel
Was that a
usage
pun further down the line?
further down the line, yeah. But it, with the things we'll talk about in a bit about hydrogen and stuff like that, that isn't in the previous version.
No.
So they've just sort of tweaked the storyline because of that as well.
I think it had a rewrite or reworkshop in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
How did you feel after seeing the this new version? How did the musical songs differ, and did you like them more or have a different feel for them? Because we could be controversial here.
Well, there's a few that I struggled with.
Okay.
Just because I've known it for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if the changes to Starlight Express, the sort of major ballad, major song, worked for me. Because
is that the when you say ballad, you just mean the song
the end
Starlight
of Act
Express or Light?
Starlight Express, the end of Act 1.
Yeah. Okay.
I just felt they've played with it a little too much.
Right.
It was because it was quite a simplest. I'm not saying simple in a bad way. I'm saying quite a focused, simple song for Rusty. Whereas now I felt they'd played with it too much.
And what did they do?
Well, they just added extra words in and extra bits, and just it just didn't seem as pure as it has been for a long time.
Right. Okay.
I felt like other changes they've made to some songs were fine, but this one just seemed to. It didn't get me. It wasn't as.
Well, can you give an example? Like, did it touch upon anything?
No, what I mean is they almost did a mashup with it, and it was mixed with extra bits of the song that weren't in the original. And when you're so used to a song being quite well written on its own, it's messy. It's a bit of it's almost like a modernisation that wasn't necessary for that bit.
It could have been worse. It could have
been. I'm not
Charlie
saying
SAX doing the remix of it.
It could be. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the production as a whole. It was just little things like that because maybe I've seen it too many
Be thankful
times.
Billie Eilish isn't really singing it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, no one would be able to hear it.
Yeah, it just
They would all be depressed.
I mean, the other one, it's like Rolling Stock. I loved it because and I like the greaseball change to a female role.
I was going to pick up on this one because I love this song, this new version. Well, I mean, it's new for me anyway. But like, I really liked her. She was giving me like Bonnie Tyler. She gave me Cyndi Lauper. I was really like who's the one? Debbie Harry.
She was. Yeah,
I really liking this edginess.
Yeah.
But then when you listen back to the old soundtracks, which I have. They're all sung by men. I thought, oh, okay. I didn't realise it was like a male thing. But then I kind of understand why it was a male role to begin with.
Yeah.
Because of it having that appearance of it being, what was it, Diesel or something?
Greaseball basically is meant to be Elvis.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the whole,
I never got that Elvis vibe, but I did feel like it should be sort of like a masculine thing or a masculine.
Yeah.
Because it just comes across like that.
Yeah, it's like there's definitely certain parts of the musical really that have got 50s sort of elements to it because you can hear there's moments in there.
You just take Dinah.
Yeah,
that is very much how she was decorated and dressed or whatever.
Yeah,
it's very 1950s.
Yeah, and then you've got Pearl's Dolly-esque uncoupled song. It's all very sort of in the similar strain. The same as
you're doing a lot of squeaking in that chair.
I don't know what's my foot.
Take your foot off.
And it's like one rock and roll too many. That's definitely the Elvis side of it. Yeah, because it works really well in this, but it's like this is meant to be set in the it's an 80s inspired musical, but you've got 50s. But I think this is what Lloyd Webber does a lot, where he doesn't always fit with a time zone. That because why should you? There's it characterises that person in their own right in a way.
So maybe with this update, they've updated a lot of it. So obviously you don't need to reference Elvis because he's not around anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Hence why we had a female Greaseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
Even in the 80s, I don't think there's anything wrong with
Exactly.
it.
Because it's like Pumping Iron. That's the same song by Greaseball as well. But I think because she had a gritty, strong voice, it worked well with those songs as well. You know, she did have that 80s rasp to her voice, and it worked really well to feel like it was in the right realm, really.
And another thing for me, which I felt was quite controversial, or is potentially, after seeing the reviews, after me going on YouTube to watch the thing again, because I thought, I really like this, and then reading all the comments, I kind of understand the comments.
Yeah.
For me, like, trains or train set is a very, like, male-dominated thing.
Yeah.
So we started off with the controller being a little girl.
Yeah.
And the mother's a woman, obviously. And the majority of the cast were, like, some of the trains were female as well.
Yeah.
And when it came to, like, as we said, Greaseball, that gives me an impression of something, like, heavy or masculine.
Yeah.
We never got that. And Rusty, the old steam train, I'm also feeling like that should be like an older or a more macho male sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And with no disrespect to the actor who played Rusty, I wasn't getting that.
No.
That the appearance, because we saw a lot of his face, I never felt that he was the Rusty train at all.
And I think the implication of the name Rusty means older.
Older.
Because you've
he
been around a lot.
And he was, he
was 17.
Slower. Yeah. Or was that the age of the actor?
Yeah.
70. That doesn't work for me.
No.
You know, and his backpack had steam coming out of it, but we can discuss that later on. But to get the impression of this steam train,
exactly.
I didn't really get it with that actor.
No, I know what you mean.
You know, it just seemed like an odd pairing. And then when he was teamed up with Pearl as well. Not Pearl.
It's Pearl.
Oh, was it Pearl?
Yeah, it's Pearl.
I'm going to say Dinah, but
No,
Pearl.
Dinah goes with Greaseball.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right either. I think the character that did feel right was the new one, the addition of Hydrogen.
Yeah.
He felt more like punk rock, punk-esque, emo-esque or something.
But also
this
new age.
Thing,
it felt new age. It felt right.
Yeah, he was quite good. And is it the electric one? Electra.
Yeah.
I felt like that was all nothing. Because they would have been the new guy on the block in the old days, weren't they?
Yeah, and it's interesting.
But they're not now because they were pushing Hydrogen as this new thing.
Because that's Electra's previous costume.
So do you want to tell the listening viewers what you're showing me?
So Electra's the thing is, another thing is, there's been a few changes to the production where they've changed costumes. Now, Electra in this version was very almost alien-like, which for me, I can see why they did it, but Electra has always been quite a strong character, and I felt like Electra in this performance was strong in almost a Bowie way. It's very much Bowie this time, whereas Electra's always been quite a commanding performance rather than quite a subdued one. So I found Electra being on stage was good, but I didn't feel like it was the strength was like of what Electra I've always remembered to be, you know, because Electra always entered from the ceiling. Electra always entered like and commanded the space, because it was always the disconnect from everything else. She always, when Electra came in, it was like, oh my God, there's somebody completely like separate to this. And I just felt like Electra entering from the back like everybody else did, it felt a little bit like
sidelined.
Yeah,
with the rest.
It was like, yes, it's a shiny, sparkly, alien-like costume and performance, but is it enough to stand out on their own?
Yeah, to me, it felt like they were supposed to be this new thing, but then at the same time, they're pushing Hydrogen as being this new thing.
Yeah, well, this is it, but this again, was the thing.
It just didn't seem to work.
It felt for me a little bit style over substance. That was my problem with. You know, yes, the costumes are glitzy and are sort of shiny, but I did feel like there was an element of fun and humour from Electra that wasn't there the same.
I was going to say it. They never really spoke much.
No, whereas Electra in the proper, you know, the normal iterations, Electra's always been Like
it felt like there were like a chorus of people, silver tinfoil people coming on. We had to wait for the things to blow up, the little angel, the
yeah,
electric
I
things
struggled with that a little bit because it was
on.
like they did a lot of
lightning bolt. That was
lightning
what I
bolt,
meant, yeah.
like blowing up with well, it looked like helium, but helium and hydrogen were somewhere else.
And I did feel with their mic. I think there was 4 of them, weren't there?
Oh God, we had mic issues on that one.
Yeah, and I couldn't understand a word they were singing at all. They were very like so quiet.
Just before we do any more.
Okay, so Richard's just showed me a previous video clip of the entrance to Electra on the AC/DC track. Now, what we immediately take from that is that previous edition or version was far more electrifying and meant so much, because what I referenced was they're coming in like David Bowie against Elvis, like we said. So that's a huge context there. That this is
contrast.
Something like new to what is old.
Because it's delusionally new. Because yes, we're in a new world and there's other things that are new as well. But this is, completely lost in that world.
Yeah, and like you said, in that version that you showed me, they all had characteristics there. There was
all
like
the different
really
carts, all the different, all the support car carriages, all definitely had differences.
And how they were even singing that were very different tones, different everything. And you made a reference just saying that Electra was performing like some sort of drag.
Yeah, it's drag queen. It's a drag performance.
Yeah.
As in, it's a delusional drag artist that's like, look at me. I don't care about anybody else. Look at me.
Yeah.
And whereas, and it's like the all the different carriages are all the support drag artists that have all got their own definite characters. And I think this is what happened with the new version. When they all came out, they were all almost sanitized and all looked the same.
All looked the same, all androgynous.
Yeah, and it was all. It didn't have any element of characterization individually,
No.
and I feel that was lost.
Yes, they had a technical issue with their mics. However, even when they were singing, and you could still hear the actor's voice.
Yeah, exactly.
It still travelled a little bit, but there was nothing to it.
No,
the whole characterization wasn't there. It was just placid.
Yeah, and then it almost felt, for me, it felt secondary to what else was happening.
And it didn't feel special enough.
No.
When they were saying that this is this new superpower.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's not, it's about delusion. It's about creating that separation from everything else. And
they didn't do anything other than wheel on, say that this is what they are, and then sort of like wheel off again.
And this is where One Rock and Roll Too Many, I come back to that one, had more power in the previous version, because you'd got somebody like Electra that was like a big flamboyant drag performer, then fall into pieces with Elvis. When they fell on the floor, it was more of an actual performance of them both becoming to the end of the line, really, where they'd run out of energy and they're now both, it just did. I think when Electra did it in this version, it didn't have the same change in pace, from going from a real sort of flamboyant look at me to complete opposite and sort of downbeat and downtrodden and exhausted, really. And it didn't have the same change, really, for me.
Whereas Hydrogen, his tone and his entrance was very special.
And I think the thing to mention as well with Hydrogen's not even a train. Hydrogen was a support carriage. And had more entrance than Electra. And that's why it's a bit like Electra should be up there. Electra should be remembered.
Yeah, and even like the aggregates as well, when they came in. Was it the...
aggregates,
the freight ones.
Yeah.
They all had more of their characters on as well, and it felt like, Electra and the shiny ones, they're all right. They're part of the setup, but they did feel like they were at the back.
Maybe it was the detriment of having Hydrogen involved now.
Yeah.
But they still should have been delusional with the others, because they are all meant to be trains that are obsessed with their power form, not anybody else's, so it shouldn't matter. You know, that should be seen as a threat, not bigger than everybody else in a way. You know, and I think that doesn't help sometimes.
What else would you like to talk about? Because we might as well just do all this in one instead of breaking it down into sections. Let's talk about Rusty then.
Yeah.
That character. We already, I already picked up on the fact that the actor didn't float my boat, and I didn't feel like he was representative of that old steam locomotive. What's your thoughts on that?
I sort of echo it. It's always traditionally been played by a younger character. I don't know if it was more stylised than it maybe has been in the past. And I think this is where maybe the reason I'm talking about some of the songs changing. I feel like some of Rusty's almost meant to be the pure one, because it's steam is king in the and I feel like that's why some of the changes to the songs almost strip that away.
Yeah.
That for me, that's why I felt like it was almost like he was the like quirky love interest, almost the geeky guy that's almost the one that not everybody likes but people still fancy. It's like
for me, I think the issue here is you've got a young steam engine that's called Rusty.
Yeah.
If he was supposed to be some kind of like Thomas, the tank engine, like a young one, then why didn't they? If he's going to be young, why didn't they make him like a small steam engine, but not being called Rusty, but being called something else? Because by giving it a name Rusty, you're thinking like a really old, like a Gordon.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going right back. This is where, for me, I think we need to really talk about Mama, really, because Popper, Mama, it's always been Popper up until this point.
So why did they do that? Why have they changed the? I
read something somewhere where they thought that the production was very male orientated. So that's been edited recently.
And my issue is, but a lot of males, especially young boys, play with trains.
Yeah, exactly.
So who is this pitted for?
Exactly, I know. The thing is as well, folks, but for the Mama Popper character, I didn't think was portrayed as old or as strong as previous versions, because Popper's always been an older black guy that's a very soul, very bluegrass singer that's a bit like in Porgy and Bess, the real deep soul sort of black guy. And I'm not discrediting Mama. She had the same sort of soulful voice, but what I felt
she had a beautiful voice.
What I felt like was there was less emphasis on the age difference. Because Papa was almost like Grandad, to me.
Yeah, I felt there was a lack of masculinity.
Yeah.
That's what I picked up on. That's why I'm saying like Greaseball being female, Rusty being like a young guy, and the controller and the Mama, obviously females, and even Electra. A lot of them, without this sounding horrible, everything came across as camp.
Yeah.
So then my question is, if everything's feminine and camp, where's your masculinity for the young boys that there are heterosexuals out there? I'm sorry to say,
Yeah,
where are they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why this becomes it's a talking point, because then when you get the scenes where Starlight Express turns up and it is the Mama character, Popper character, I didn't feel like there was enough disconnect from the two. Whereas in previous versions, Popper almost looks exhausted, almost like he's died, so you never really see him. And then he comes back like Simba's father in Lion King. He comes back like, it's almost in a dream sequence on top of a dream sequence where he's there in the distance, like returning to offer advice.
Yeah.
And I felt like it just didn't connect the same way. I felt like there was no difference between the two sort of characters. There was just smoke to show the difference.
Yeah, that confused me, because then Mama ended up being an old
Starlight Express. The Starlight Express, which is basically the whole point, but you didn't see the transition. There was no like disappearance and then reappearance as something different. You just connected them two to the same, I
think the only masculine one really that stuck out was probably Hydrogen, but again, that came more like the emo-esque.
I think as well, it was almost like the whole production was very 80s New Romantics, very sort of.
Yeah.
What I mean is by that I don't mean that it's necessarily the costumes. I mean more the flamboyance. Maybe it was more of the whole production was more of a.
It felt feminine.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think with everything going that way, it's going too far. I think.
I think the line, there is a fine line, and it's very easy to lose sight of that. You know, there's a lot of audience in there, and there's a lot of people watching it, and you need to I'm not saying you need to still, you know, stereotypes aren't there for a reason. I think you need to have all walks of life involved in a production.
Yeah, but then if all the productions you see are doing stuff like that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it was a good show.
I think we've just gone really deep on it, and I think sometimes you have to when it's had so much spotlight for so many years and it's changed so many times. It's very interesting to look at it from this perspective as well sometimes.
But that's the first thing that struck me, really.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about? Oh, incidentally, talking about stereotypes, Pearl, all the catering one and Pearl, Dinah, they're all girls.
No one was drag
really?
Queen. Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if one was drag, did they still look feminine?
Yeah.
So therefore, it doesn't matter. You're still making them out to be.
It's one rock and roll too many.
Yes, quite frankly, it was. So what we've just discovered is we've been rattling off a load of our opinions for about half an hour and realised that it stopped recording. So
Oops.
Exactly. So
there was a signal failure down the line.
Yes, exactly, and
the Fat Controller forgot to press the button.
I've definitely been cancelled. So just to finish off that point that I was talking about, I think it was about why could they not have just a male be the diner without having to be feminine if it was in drag. So I think that was the issue that I was going on. I think I did say, but either way, I'm just we're just rattling off a load of nonsense now. So
we're back on track.
Back on track. Oh, you're full of the puns, you are, aren't you? You're signalling to me. You're signalling that we should move on. So
my points need changing.
You're getting way off track now.
You just keep using track.
Back on the turnstile. Look, let's talk about Rusty for a little bit because I think this is.
He needs some oiling.
Yeah. Oh, we're not getting anywhere. We're certainly not going to make up that half an hour. Rusty, again. Now, I said this might have been early on, so we might be repeating ourselves, but we might not. Don't know. Rusty gives you the impression of it being an older steam train. However, it's a younger actor. Now, I said to you, if this was like Thomas the Tank Engine, why was Rusty not a younger tank engine then? That was all go-getting, wanted to be just like the others, but with a different name, because Rusty gives like a really old sort of a name that sort of had it. But why not have like a younger name?
Yeah, like you mentioned about being Gordon, or being one of the older, bigger trains if you were going to be called Rusty.
Yeah, something like been out in the elements for quite a long time, rather than it just being Rusty and being old hat.
I feel like that.
Well, you certainly look it.
I'm Rusty.
What did you think to the performance of Rusty?
I thought it was good, but I do take your point on board. I do think there's been stronger Rusties in the past as well. But maybe that's something that you pick up from the whole production a little bit, that all of the main trains, I don't know if they command the same performance as previous iterations. So, because I'm only on reflection looking at the likes of Electra and Greaseball, I feel like there's more focus on the production than individual characters. Okay. Maybe in this production, right. I don't know if you got that, but I certainly felt more about it. It became a showpiece rather than a characterization.
Yeah, definitely a showpiece, because I felt this was very much a show rather than a musical. Mm-hmm. Put it that way.
Yeah,
and I felt that there was a bit of a disconnect between the names and the actors playing those characters or the named characters and what they look like as well.
Yeah, I think, for me, it was like, personally, just announcing their names at the start isn't enough to differentiate each person with each character. It's. I think it needed a lot more work on that character side of it to make them stronger. Who knows? Maybe it's improved since we saw it. It was opening night. But I do think that you've got to care about characters, and sometimes did they fully know who they were all the time?
Well, especially if you take your instance that they've so far removed from David Bowie and Elvis. Not only that, but of the flags of the countries that the trains were originated from.
So you've got to put more strength in the performance of the characterisation because you've removed some things that I equally identify them.
With this as well, we had two younger guys, as I suppose they will be classed as pit stop crew or whatever, on scooters.
Yeah.
And they were, I don't know if they were written in the originals that you've seen, but they were really good.
But they're similar, they just have people on skates doing the same role, but I think it was actually better with them being on scooters to give a bit of performance.
Also, I felt it probably modernised them because we've got scooters everywhere now.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been quite nice had they have been like the council ones and had to get the app out.
Yeah, exactly. Line ones flying around.
Exactly. Or lying about, in Nottingham's case.
I've been banned in Derby.
No, I'm not surprised. The death traps.
That was it added another level of things on wheels that worked really well. It actually, you felt like they were definitely the pit crew sort of thing for the production.
Okay, so whilst we're in this we've sort of merged our original two sections together, so that's here for the drama and set the scene. So whilst we're sort of like meandering between the two, let's just discuss the costumes now. So the first time of me seeing this, I felt that the costumes were just top notch. I felt like I'm not going to go into the embroidery and the stitching and the quality of that, but just knowing that there was steam coming out of Rusty's backpack, the fact that they all look slightly space-aged / I don't know what you'd call it, but it's got that kind of otherworldly, futuristic, yet at the same time historical element to it. It felt to me, especially with how everything was padded up, like spacesuits.
Yeah, exactly.
NASA spacesuits, but coloured,
and also fit with the staging and the set pieces around them. It felt like it was in the right location with those otherworldly look,
and definitely colourful.
Yeah, definitely
as well.
Yeah,
and the roller boots.
Yeah,
they had individual ones, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Named. I think you pointed that out at the time.
Yeah, and also what you'd probably not realise is a lot of the different characters had different coloured wheels. So, for example, Hydrogen had green wheels for his green costume. So every character had different. Everything accentuated each. Yeah, and then there was some with neon lights in them. Then there was, for me, the costumes were rich in detail all the way through. So you could tell that these. In a way, you could tell they'd been lived in. But also made for the performance they do. The person who's designed them knows that they're going to have to do a lot of movement, so they've got to be able to bend, twist and turn and not feel restricted. And
when you say lived in, bearing in mind this was the first performance we'd seen on them, do you mean that the costumes were like worn down in terms of looking a bit rough, so they resembled like dirty trains? Because
the ones that needed it, they looked like they'd been through the mill and they'd been used, rather than because it's very easy to.
Ones, they were like sparkly.
Yeah, clean. It's very easy to just have everybody in pristine costumes, but when you've got Electras looking very sparkly and high end and sort of expensive, you need the contrast between the two different types because they stand out more, and
hence the name Rusty.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah. And even down to the dinettes and the that aggregate gang, they all the aggregates looked heavy.
Yeah, they looked heavy. They looked padded well and sort of but different in their design as well. So
Oh,
each one,
you can't beat a good padded
oh,
costume.
padding. But I think as well, it's like wig use and stuff like that. Everybody had accents of colour in their wigs, or there was colours throughout each piece. Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the tech is this?
So what I will say is that I saw a few posts on social media for the production and getting ready for this production, how many new lights and new special effects they used for this, and it was next level the amount of equipment that was used in this production. The amount of lights and moving parts and pieces. It sounds so simple that the race scene had moving railings that popped up out of the back of the seating, and with stop and start lights and traffic lights and searchlights, and they all came out of the floor, like out of pits in the floor, and all on cue, and it was just and then you got screens that dropped down from the ceiling or became there were screens next to us, next to where we were sat, that were only used for the race scene. So as much as they were there, they only came on for that bit. So they just looked like black set pieces to hide something when you didn't even know, did you?
No, and at the same time, we also had, like I discussed before, those LED starlights.
Yeah.
They came down as well at
And
a certain point.
And also to add to that, all the planets of the solar system came out of the sky as well, and became when there were certain parts done where you just felt like you'd taken off to space, and
and that was just in the centre where the little child's room is, which was the main area. And
then with the back projections, it basically took you to another world, and you felt like the entire stage took off in a way. So it worked really well, but it all blended well. There was nothing out of place.
And also they had, whilst we talked about the ramps previously, they opened up, and it just enabled people to pass in and out through the centre part of it.
Yeah,
but it was used for one's
Electra's entrance,
entrance,
and for Mama's
I was going to say the Mama's one, but
but that's happened in previous versions of it. They have had a stage where that back piece does open up and the cast come through. So that's very similar to previous versions as well.
And above there, whilst there's a bit where there's ramps either side that go up and above that onto the top, there's like a huge projection screen at the back, but that split open, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, did it? That was mostly for.
It got a doorway at the top. There was a door panel that moved out of the way.
Yeah, I was just trying.
It was when the race leaders came through and the conductor,
the
lady. That happened at that point as well. While we're talking about the technical things, one thing I have forgot to mention is, in the original versions and previous versions, there has been, and the current German production, there is a huge bridge that used to come down and be part of the production for the race scene. So there's it's interesting that they didn't include that in this production, but I can see why with what you couldn't get above it. But the bridge always used to be part of the production as well. So that's just something to mention, really. Because it used to be quite an integral part of the production.
I'm surprised that the centre bit of the stage wasn't on a turnstile itself. So when they all piled in, as the trains, the locomotions, that they didn't stay there and it like moved them around. So they shot off at a different angle. You know how they're doing like...
it's quite interesting because in the main productions, they used to have that centrepiece. They used to do part of There's Light at the End of the Tunnel. They used to do a big scene where they all used to walk round and travel round in a big, fast-moving circle of people as part of the dance performance. So it's interesting that they've not made the stage size big enough to do that.
Ah, right, yeah.
That was the original one. So it was like... So yeah, it's very interesting they've not recreated that as well. One thing I was going to say about the sound and lighting, something that has been trialled in this production that hasn't been used in a lot of other productions, which not everybody would know, is every cast member had a tracker device on them as part of their costume. So whenever they travelled around the stage, the follow spots and lights followed them without a follow spotter, and also the audio was basically moving their sound around stage, so it sounded like they came from where they were on stage. So it was all done by a tracking device that the company that provide it actually have done it to trial it and show that it works in this production.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
So it's one of those sort of new bits of technology. So yes, it's a futuristic looking production, but actually they're trialing futuristic equipment in it to actually enhance the production more. Maybe why Electra sounded strange when we couldn't hear Electra's entrance because it was too quiet, because that was very centred to the middle of the stage. So that might have been a contributor to why it didn't sound great. But then we don't know.
Yeah, but it still stands at the overall thing with Electra. Was that?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
At the same time, but yeah.
But it could be that hadn't been set up right, or something had gone wrong. You don't
definitely
know.
For the fact that the mic dropped out.
Yeah, exactly.
Inaudible.
Yeah. So the other thing that they used as well, technically wise, there was flamethrowers that were controlled in big crates that were brought onto stage as part of it, and smoke
barrels,
boxes,
weren't they?
on barrels,
Yeah.
and they were pushed in. They weren't wired or connected to anything, so they were all triggered automatically. So they were all wirelessly triggered and things.
Do you reckon it was already in the barrel, or that there was like they had to position the barrel over like a hole in the floor of the stage? So
no, they built it into the actual barrels.
barrel.
You can do it, but they don't. They're sort of battery.
I'm just wondering
powered,
because I just wondered how they could control it.
Yeah, well, it basically something as similar as a big car battery in the bottom to power the actual triggering mechanism.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like with pyrotechnics, because they normally do it from under the stage or whatever, if that was already embedded into the stage, but they just place the barrel over a certain like.
But with those
trap
ones, they were actually in the barrels.
Oh, right, okay.
So, because it was interesting watching them, because most people wouldn't watch the sort of other cast members making sure they got them off stage because there were safety issues. Quick, get these off because they've got like live things and they can go bang.
Yeah.
Let's get them out of the way. Let's use them, then move them. So it was quite funny, that was, to watch.
Yes, and this when it got to the race as well, there was a lot of the use of the screens.
Yeah.
If you could imagine like a Grand Prix, so they all teamed up and there was a lot of imagery going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of layered graphics, wasn't there?
Yeah,
over the top.
Yeah, that must have taken ages to do and work out. It had to synchronise with them passing go.
Yeah,
or whatever,
exactly. Yeah.
The start and the finish, or who's overtaken who at what time. If it's like in the corner of the stage, as soon as that happened and the controller said, "Oh, they've just overtaken," or whoever, like Hydrogen takes the lead, you saw it instantly on the board, like they change up. Yeah,
and it's almost it is a choreographed race. So these things have to happen when they happen, otherwise it loses an edge. So they've got to do these things in time, and it's quite good to see. I mean, one thing I would mention is
one thing you would mention.
Well,
is this another one thing? Because there's
seven things I would mention.
You got like 20 odd things you've mentioned. Is this a particularly special thing?
It's a special thing. No, it's not a special thing. The cast regularly interacted with the audience when they went past them in races or part of the actual thing. When they'd hit a wall or crash out, they'd react to the audience or talk to them, or a
lot of audience members,
moments.
Especially if they were on the front row or where the track was, were giving them the high five. And they all went round,
and they were encouraging it,
and
it was nice to see that interaction, because it was actually, like I said, where we were sat, it was actually the front row of our blocks that they were doing it to, more than the audience members that had paid a lot of money to do it. We were actually getting a better immersive experience, even though we weren't as close to it. We felt more. You felt more like you could see what was going off and part of it, really.
Yeah. Whilst this isn't technical, but we'll just pop it in here. It's like the faux pas, or something that goes wrong.
Yeah.
At the very end, where they were doing their either the final number or when they were all like coming back in to all join together.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was for the bows or something, but in fact, it might actually be on YouTube. But one of them skated into another one, and they all fell, and they sort of like fell down. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't think that was intentional.
I mean, one thing. One thing again. One thing.
One thing too many.
I need to Google this.
Additionally,
and another thing.
Additionally, you got some information?
Yeah. So over the main run of Starlight Express originally, one of the reasons we might see the changes in this production on the staging and the set and the technical side is because Starlight Express was one of the most dangerous shows, with injuries to ankles, feet, knees, lower legs, back and neck injuries. He had an average number of 3 injuries approximately per performer against the West End average of 0.87.
Okay, so yes, high indeed.
And also to add to that, in July, Greaseball and Lightning were taken off with ankle injuries and replaced by the Swings. Not in this current run. Yeah, so that was one thing I've read before is they've had such a high turnover of cast where one cast member will be on in the first half and you'll see a completely different performer in the second half because they are always catching something, having an injury, or even because what you forget.
So it could make or break you.
Literally. Because what you don't see is if somebody comes careering off stage too fast, they haven't got far to go, because we saw it backstage. When you're walking through because when I say backstage, we didn't go fully backstage, but underneath the seating that we were sat in is all the ramps and runs where when the cast members glide off stage, they glide off stage to where we were walking. Yeah. So if they get that wrong or slip or hit or trip and hit a wall, there isn't much give, really.
Or the metal poles are staging, the things that are holding up.
And if they're excited and they're glad they've performed, they just race off and then forget or trip, they're going to hurt themselves. So, Yeah.
So that, as you're saying, could be potentially why things have changed from the original.
It could be, yeah. They've took certain things into account, and there's still going to be some injuries, but they don't really want to hit a 3 injuries per performer average again, do they? I suppose.
So when do you think health and safety is going to come in and say they must all wear hard hats?
Well, or hard hats and bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap, hard hats.
Yeah,
gloves.
I think they probably already have. I mean, to some respect, I suppose
there's a lot of padding in them costumes anyway. Yeah. However, headwear.
Yeah, they're not wearing headwear, but they do practice offset. They, before the production happened, they built a temporary set separately that people practiced on before they got to the main set. So so they'll now they've got this set to practice on. They'll probably do a lot more.
Well, they've got more than this set to practice on. They've got to perform on it.
Yeah, they have. But yeah, so that just a little bit of a history piece of
a nugget of information there.
You don't really think about the injury side of a production, but they are moving quite fast on skates, and it doesn't take much.
There we go. Move over dancing on ice, eh? And now it's time for
Rewind Rewatch.
Rewind Rewatch, Richard. Which part of this you've got to give me one little clip? You can't say you'll watch it all again because we know you would. I just want the little clip. What segment would you go back and just see again, just to refresh your fragile mind?
Even though...
You're giving this a caveat already, aren't you?
I am, but even though I don't like the version of the song, Starlight Express this time, with all the stars and the planets and everything they threw at it, that hit hard because it actually felt otherworldly, and I've never sat in a theatre where I feel like the whole stage just took off. And with the way the stars appeared out of nowhere, the way they pulled off all the little tricks of almost blurring the lines, because we're not just talking stars above the people who'd paid the most money. We're talking stars above every single part of the stage,
the whole room,
the scenery, above every audience member. And all the planets appeared, and everything just went into darkness, and you almost didn't know if you were sat in a seat or not. You just felt suspended in this space, and I think that
were you on drugs that day?
Yeah, but you know where I'm coming from on that. It actually felt.
I knew I was sat on
that's
a
very
seat though,
difficult to pull off in a big space like that.
Yeah, with the stars coming down everywhere,
Yeah.
it just felt like you were getting closer to the action, and like the ceiling were coming in as well.
Because there was moments where the stars kept moving, so they would just felt like the whole place was floating almost. It didn't.
But that was the drugs.
Yeah, that was the drugs.
Right, okay, so for me, I felt that Hydrogen is worthy of a rewatch. That was in Act 2. Or was it? Yeah, I think it was. And also, I would say Rolling Stock, with the very beginning, simply because it makes you feel that you're going to watch something really thrilling, and it really does get everything going. It fires everything up at the very beginning.
It was a commanding performance. You know, it was Greaseball took hold of the stage and just told, you know, it was, you felt like off we go.
Yeah. So for me, it'll be rewinding and rewatching those two little bits. Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
Call this a show, Richard. This is a section where we sum up what we thought of the musical piece, and also we might as well add in the musical numbers. So let's start off with discussing the musical numbers as to which one's your favourite. We don't have to list all of them.
That's a good question.
Well, are you going to answer it? Because you know quite a few, obviously. It's been in your brain, foddering about.
You see, for me, I've got 3, but...
Don't keep it to yourself.
I've got one with a caveat.
Is that the extra one?
No. My caveat is, I love Starlight Express, but not this version.
Okay.
Because it's not pure enough. I've already said my piece in the past, while we've been recording it. UNCOUPLED
Yep.
and the Starlight sequence. Those 3 have always been like the ones that... and also whistled at me, just because it's just silly, but it links straight to the musical.
Okay. I really liked Rolling Stock.
Yeah.
That just gets you in the mood. Yeah, I quite like that. AC/DC, that was another hit song that I really quite liked.
I also like One Rock and Roll Too Many, just because it's just it's just about failed end of the career rock and rollers and trains and stuff. You know.
I mean, I did actually quite like Starlight Express. I've not got the previous history with it, so it was fresh to me, and I quite like that. I also liked At the End of the Tunnel.
Yeah,
that was really
love
nice.
That one.
And for me, I quite like Hydrogen, the new song.
Yeah, that one's good.
That was good. But yeah, there was quite a few good numbers there, and I think we might as well just go straight into the summary here.
Yeah.
Now, because you'll probably have a lot more to talk about with your summary, so I'll carry on with mine. First time seeing this, I wasn't expecting like a stage play or a stage musical, a traditional thing, anything like that. The moment you go into that auditorium or that building, you know it's something very different.
Yeah.
And the moment you see the set, it was just a show for me. This was a really good show. You can't go too deep in the storyline because there's not really a storyline. It's just a race with trains. So you just hear the musical numbers and go along for the ride. Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
But it was a good ride. It was thoroughly entertaining. It really was. And yes, it was quite gripping. You know, even when they did the races, that's when everything started coming alive. It's like, oh, what's going to happen? It didn't matter who came first or whatever, but when you were like getting along with it, it was like, oh, come on, Rusty, don't let me down. Get there, come on. You know, you really like willing this old slow coach, excuse the pun, to get there again.
It's like a futuristic fairy tale. I think it's like your whole pantomime thing where you just want to see good versus evil. But it's all that mixed into it as well.
Well, that's just basic storytelling, really, isn't it? Good versus evil. But yeah, I completely get you there. It was just, I thought it was really good. I still stand by what I say about lack of masculinity on there.
Mm-hmm.
I would have preferred more butch masculine males. Not for any weird way, but
just for contrast, as in
it just brought me out because I just felt like half the time it's like watching something extremely too camp. There's nothing wrong in that.
No.
But it's not for me. And I know it's probably not for quite a lot of other people. But you can have a lot of like glamorous things, a lot of like gorgeous costumes. You can have all that without it being too feminine.
But it'd be interesting to see what's happened since we saw it, because it was opening night and changes are made after opening night and press nights and things like that. So, you never know.
But the female grease ball, I was down with that.
Oh, that was great. Yeah,
that
totally,
was fine.
Totally
I didn't realise it was
a
different, whatever, anyway.
I think for me it's more strength of character, and the male roles weren't strong enough. They weren't presented
they
strong
weren't at all,
enough.
no.
Where you need that contrast. That's the...
Yeah, that's all I'm going with on that one. So, like, taking away, changing Papa for Mama.
Yeah.
Or even the controller, it's like, pick one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they're just a bit too much, but yeah. Go on then. Sum up.
For me, it's always going to be in my heart, because it was the first musical I ever saw. My heart. It's the first musical I ever saw when I was 11. So it's been over 30 years now that I've been on this earth.
Pushing it there.
That I've seen that this has been close to me. So I am quite critical of any version. And
would you say you're a bit of a purist?
Well, no, I wouldn't say I'm purist, because I actually, this almost glow up. Excuse the pun. It was glowing. The stage was probably what they wanted it to be. I've seen a bad version. Never go and see a tour of Starlight Express, because the stage is way too small.
Yeah.
It's like they can't even get any speed up to actually perform it, because
noted
the end of the stage has come towards you before you've had time to actually perform. So I wouldn't say that this was by far of the worst version. I'd like to go, like we've said before, I'd like to go and see the one in Germany just to see it.
Yes, definitely.
Because
we should do that.
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. But also, I think this version, I can see why they made changes. Some changes I'm not so as happy with, but a lot of the changes are for the right reasons, to make it almost timeless and almost its own little world.
Yeah, I think what makes things timeless is having different versions in terms of with an updated attitude.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Whilst I can understand why they've updated a lot of things for a modern audience, don't always forget the original core as well. Just certain things that have just gone a bit probably too much. I suppose what you're saying as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think if you're going to take certain things out, strengthen other things up, and I think that's where I'm going with
like
it.
Inserting hydrogen, but then where does that leave Electrica?
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever the name is.
Electra.
Why do I keep saying Electrica?
I don't know.
Just an idiot. Scores then, please, Richard, for Starlight Express. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being first class on the Starlight Express and 1 being no light at the end of the tunnel, what's it going to be?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
Just because of the history, and, I'm not going to go into more detail than I already have. 8 out of 10.
And I don't want to hear any more of your details, because it'll be one more thing. So for me, I would say 9 out of 10. The reason why it's 9 out of 10, it was all right. It was good. But it was good entertainment.
Yeah, definitely.
If it didn't have all the rolling about, it probably would have been a 6 or a 7.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, but
yeah.
taking that into account, it was a really good show. So it's just a 9. So what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be?
I gave it a standing ovation and it deserved it.
Yep, and a standing ovation from me as well. Well done to everybody involved in Starlight Express. So there we are. That's our discussion of Starlight Express. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage Downstage.
Starlight Express has music by Andrew Lloyd. I knew I'd fuck up. Starlight Express has music by Andrew Lloyd Webber and lyrics by Richard Still go. Still go. Get rid of that E.
Still go.
Starlight Express has music by Android Lloyd Webber. Why can I not speak?
Android Lloyd Webber. It may be Android Lloyd Webber.
He might be.
Android Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
Because he was doddering about when we saw him, so you know.
You're walking around like Joe Biden.
Hello.
Starlight Express has music by Android Lloyd Webber.
Android Lloyd Webber.
Andrew Lloyd Webber. I'm going to have a little beat.
Yeah.
Maybe a little root as well. Starlight Express has... Stop it now, stop it. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Starlight Express. We saw this production at Troubadour Wembley Theatre Park, fucking hell.
Put the in because it'll help you.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound right when you
No,
don't
it
say
doesn't,
things.
does it? On today's episode, we'll be discussing Starlight Express. We saw this production at the Troubadour Wembley Park Theatre on the 8th of June 2024.
The what? The
Troubadour.
You didn't say it didn't come out. As a child's train set. I identify as a child's train set. As a child's train set magically comes to life and the engines race to become the fastest in the world, Rusty the steam train has little hope of winning until he's inspired by the legend of Starlight Express.
Legend of the...
Yeah, I know. I'm just going to pause and start again. As a child's train set magically comes to life and the engines race to become the fastest in the world, Rusty the steam train has little hope of winning until he's inspired by the legends of the Starlight Express.
Just do it again.
Rusty the steam train has little hope of winning until he's inspired by the legends of the Starlight Express.
Legends.
By the legends of the Starlight Express.
We'll go from Rusty.
Yeah. Rusty the steam train has little hope of winning until he's inspired by the legend of... But yeah, so, no.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, but no, but...
Yeah, but no butter. So, call this the show, Richard. This is the bit where we can sum up what we felt about... Let me start that again. Let's just check the audio levels. Are you level? Are you level?
Rolling stock.
Oh, rolling stock.